Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the Tata Steel Masters in 2023. So we're now in the round 8 of the super event and we're starting now this round with an epic and beautiful sharp tactical gameplay by Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. So this is now the World Championship match back from 2018 and this game was so great that happened a couple of minutes ago because it has a certain tactical problem, which is this so-called overload pattern. This overload is of course a tactical problem when you have one piece that's stuck simply to the defense of many pieces, which is of course not good, especially when that piece is the queen, because the queen is a piece that's supposed to play very actively, and when you have that piece that's just defending many pieces all over your board, then of course the queen is overloaded, so it can be really become a huge positional but also a tactical problem. So this pattern will happen here today. Be prepared. This will lead into a wild tactical sequence. So in my opinion, really great games that have been played by Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. So let's check out now what happened. Fabiano opened with the move e4. Magnus' response was e5 after knight to f3, knight to c6. We have bishop to b5. The Rui Lopez, the Spanish game, is on the board. So after move a6, we have now the Murphy defense by Magnus, bishop to a4 by Fabi, knight to f6, hitting the pawn on e4, and after kingside castling, you can go of course with knight to e4, which will become the open Rui Lopez, but Magnus goes into the more solid closed Rui Lopez with bishop to e7. So here rook to e1 was played by Fabiano Caruana, protecting now finally the pawn on e4. Magnus has now to play the move b5 because there was also this dependency between the knight and the pawn on e5. If you of course don't react, bishop to c6, knight to e5 will happen. So that's why b5 is of course the necessary move. After bishop to b3 and kingside castling, now Fabi goes into the so-called anti-martial system here with the move a4, and we have seen already this system played by Caruana after move a4. You're not allowing of course some d5 breakthroughs. d5 is usually the method. If white prepares maybe the move c3, then I think d5 will become a very annoying system to handle. Will reach now the so-called martial attack from black's perspective, although as I mentioned many times in my videos, and probably if you have seen it, then we have to say that in this martial systems you have a weakness on e5 and you will probably lose the pawn on e5, but the activity that you gain is a great compensation in the martial attack, because look at this, the bishop on c1, the knight on b1 is stuck, the rook on a1, so many pieces are simply stuck on the starting square. So it's in my opinion really one of the most beautiful lines of the Rui Lopez of the Spanish game, the martial attack. You should also check it out if you have problems maybe to find yourselves a nice opening line, a nice opening repertoire with the black pieces. I think the martial attack is really a brilliant method. So after move kingside castling, so Fabi is not allowing this move d5 because he's already challenging Magnus Carlsen on the queen side. So now there's simply no time for d5 because a takes b5 will happen. So that's why here Magnus has to react with b4, and now after move a5 we have now again this tiny little positional problems in both camps, because black has now the weak b4 pawn, which is a little bit isolated, but also Fabi has here the isolated pawn on a5. So in many occasions we have seen in many of the games that we have covered, these two pawns can be a warnable piece, so it can be of course an attacking method for your opponent. So in the continuation now d6 was played by Magnus. He's preparing now to hit the bishop to g4, pitting the maybe even the knight. So that's why after move c3 and preparing d4, we have rook to b8, and now Fabi goes with h3. He's not allowing to get pinned because he's trying now to launch the pawn on d4. He's trying to now finally get the central breakthrough. So this is now a slow preparation by white, but it's of course a necessary method, because in order to make something you have to break somewhere of course the position. So in the continuation h6 we have now d4, and after b takes c3 and b takes c3, notice now that when the b file got opened, now that actually the queen is a little bit stuck to the defense of the bishop on b3. So the bishop is a little bit loose there on the board. You can improve of course the position of the bishop. You can play bishop to a4, you can play of course bishop to c2, but it's of course a loss of tempo just to play one bishop move without any idea. So It's a loss of tempo, but in my opinion it was maybe even necessary, because you don't want to have your queen like this, simply defending the bishop on b3, and of course also being stuck to the defense of the rook on e1, because in some occasions, look at this, we have already a tension in the center of the board. The rook will eventually come on e8. If we look at this black's position, a rook will come on e8, so that's why if the e file opens, there could be a tension between the rook on e8 and the rook on e1, and the queen is simply there, stuck to the defense of both of these pieces. So that's, I think, the huge position, but also tactical problem in White's continuation. So okay, after e takes d4, we have also a new problem here for Fabiano Caruana, that actually he cannot connect his pawns. Here he would love, of course, to have such a beautiful central position with his pawns, where he could have this central pawn majority, because he would have a 2 versus 1 situation here in the center of the board. But actually this is not working, because this wasn't the continuation, but look at this, what happens. You can play d5 immediately and have solved every positional problem now in the game, and after something like e5 you have this opportunity, knight to e4, and look at this, if you play knight from b to d2, you cannot play even, of course, knight to c3, because the knight is already covering that square. Look at this, knight to b4, knight to d3 is going to happen. This bishop to f5 will come into the game. So black will solve, I think, many positional problems in the game, and then will hit the center with the move c5, and could have, I think, here a solid game. So that's why you see, you cannot play c takes d4. As I said, after d5 you can of course play e takes d5, but now after knight to d5, bishop to d5, queen to d5, you're left here with an isolated pawn. Black is continuing the game with the beautiful bishop here. It's an open position, so in my opinion this should be a much better position here for black. So see, after move e takes d4, Fabi has to take out now with the knight. So it creates a new structural weakness now for white, because white is left now with an isolated pawn on c3 and has a certain problem how to even defend the pawn on e4. It's of course nothing spectacular. Here still white should be slightly better because of the piece activity, but I think Magnus with this opening line has solved many positional problems. So I think Magnus played here really the perfect line against this anti-martial attack, anti-martial system, pardon me, here with this method. I think he gained also counterplay ideas. So in the continuation, bishop to d7 was played by Magnus Carlsen. We have bishop to f4, knight to e5, and now maybe in some occasions we could break and enter again with d5, c5 and similar stuff. Magnus is now using these 2 pawns in order to start also an attack here on the queen side. So knight to a3 played by Fabi. We have rook to e8, and notice, as I said, now the position is happening. The e file could be really an object of the attack of both sides. So now if something gets cleared, as I said, the queen is a little bit stuck here, is a little bit stuck to the bishop on b3. So now slowly but surely this position is exploding, because something will get open for sure. So in the continuation, Fabi goes bishop to g3, and he's trying to now launch the f4 move. We have seen, basically in the beginning he wanted to play c takes d4, it didn't work. Now he's trying to play f4, he's trying now somehow to connect one of his pawns to the pawn on e4 and start to roll these pawns in the center of the board, start to create dynamics in the center of the board. So here Magnus goes bishop to f8, good method, because if something gets cleared, then of course also the e4 pawn could be hanging. And now comes already one of the critical moments of the game. Here Fabi goes f4 immediately, and this was maybe the start of Fabi's bad game, because f4 seems tempting and it seems logical that you're playing the game like this, but actually this is simply too overrushed, because look at this, a better method is here to just slow down the pace a little bit, play bishop to c2, get at least out of the range of the rook. You still have time to launch your f4 move if possible. Of course you'll still have time to do your attacking method, but at least you got out of this tactical mess. After move f4 that Fabi played, Magnus is saying, okay, I will retreat, and now Fabi goes with e5, which is opening the position, and that's exactly what Magnus I think, wanted to get. He teased him a little bit here with this move. E5 is so tempting, and I think 90% of every player would play this move because it's beautiful, it's opening, it's aggressive. You're creating tempi against your opponent's pieces. But now, as we said, the queen is overloaded. The queen on d1 is simply stuck to the defense of many pieces. So now Magnus simply takes. We have d takes e5, f takes e5, and now after knight takes d4, c takes d4, it seems so that Fabi has finally connected two great pawns in the center of the board. But now comes the brilliant idea by Magnus Carlsen. He plays bishop to c6, and look at this. He activates his pieces. He's creating now attacks on the d file and the e file. The problem is now, if you play here e takes f6, this is not working. Actually, this is losing for white immediately, because you get this one. Rook takes e1, and whatever you do, if you play bishop to e1, we'll simply play this one. Rook takes b3. After queen to b3, look at this. Queen to d4, and we have a double attack against the rook, against the king. So it's game over. Instead of taking with the bishop here, you could of course take with the queen to e1, but now again rook to b3 is going to happen, queen to d4. So again, the game is simply over here for white. Really wild stuff that actually after e takes f6 you're simply lost. So that's why here Fabi goes bishop to c2. Although the only move maybe to play here is to play a counter attack with rook to c1, but still I think black should be slightly better because of this opportunity to play a blockade. Really, the blockade idea is the best idea here. Again, you cannot take because of the same tactical problems, rook to e1 and similar stuff. But the blockade, I think, would cause here many strategic problems now in white's position, because after bishop to d5, knight to d5, look at this. We have a powerful knight that can be protected with the move c6 later. The b file is open. The bishop is attacking, of course, also the knight. So from this point on, I think white is facing many position problems. Knight to b4 could happen, knight to d3 later. So I think now this powerful knight will cause very some tactical damage. Look at this. These pawns, okay, you have connected two pawns, but they're a little bit weak. They're not connected to some other pawns. So again, a much better position for black. So as I said, maybe rook to c1. At least you're solving the position for a while. But after move bishop to c6, Fabi goes bishop to c2, and this causes now new tactical problems in the game, because now Magnus goes all in, queen to d5. From this point on, the game is a one-way ticket. Basically, it's so hard to defend its position. Look at this, a perfect square for the queen, like in this Tetris game, where simply one piece fits beautifully into position. Magnus is threatening immediately checkmate. We have rook to e2, have to protect now the position like this. We have rook to b4, Magnus continues the pressure. We have a backward pawn, again a new structural weakness in white's position. After rook to b4, king to h2. If you play bishop to f2, look at this, you cannot protect your pawn on d4, you're getting checkmated. You simply disconnect the rook from the defense of the pawn on g2. Really wild stuff. So that's why king to h2 had to be played by Fabi, but now Magnus grabs one pawn, and this game is simply over, I think, here for white. Queen to b1, we have now knight to e4. Magnus goes now with this knight into the game, although maybe a slightly better method is to play rook to d2. At least you are keeping your pieces in the game. That was, I think, the most important part about this line. You're keeping the queen on the board, you're keeping the pieces, but also knight to e4 is perfectly fine, but it leads into a little bit more simplified line here by black, but it doesn't matter. Still, Magnus is dominating all over the board. After knight to e4, bishop to e4 was played, rook to e4, rook takes e4, queen to e4, queen to e4, and now after bishop to e4, as I said, it leads into a forced tactical sequence where basically black is up only one pawn. In this other sequence, many more pieces would be still on the board. Then you have, of course, many more attacking chances, but this is perfectly fine. Just to reach the endgame stage, the position is much better for black. The evaluation is +4 in black's favor, so good choice also here by Magnus Carlsen. Knight to c4, rook to b8, rook to c1, rook to b5, hitting both of these pawns. In the continuation now, e6 by Fabi. He's trying to simplify the game somehow by making something with this dark square bishop, although probably rook to d1 at least, maybe trying to get this rook somehow into the game, but still nothing is working. Rook to d5 would probably be Magnus' continuation, even further simplifying the game by trading off the rooks. Fabi, as I said, tried e6, it's not working because after f takes e6, Fabi takes out now the pawn on c7, but now after rook to c5, we have a double attack against the knight and also against the bishop on c7. Here Fabi retreats to f4, and here after bishop to d5. In this position, Fabiano Caruana resigned. Very wild stuff. Let's see what's the problem. You can of course step back with knight to b2, but look at this. Rook to c1 will happen, or bishop to c1, and now we play bishop to b4, and there's simply no good way to protect this pawn. You just grab this one, and you have two passers with the support of the bishop pair. Fabi knows of course that it's a lost game against Magnus Carlsen, and he resigned with pride, of course, and this was a good choice. Great game, I think, by Magnus Carlsen. He outplayed Fabi here in the middle game stage. He realized this problem of the overload of the queen. The queen was stuck simply to the defense of the bishop on b3, of the rook on e1. Magnus used this method. Magnus used his tactical opportunities in the game and won this brilliant epic game. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Magnus is back. Magnus has now 2 consecutive wins. Yesterday he won his game against Richard Rapport. Incredible. Maybe, who knows, Magnus can still make something in this event. He played warm and cold in this event. He won many games, but he also lost many games. He still playing great. You see how he can play the middle game stage, how he can find his tactics, but still I think we expected more. Probably now we'll see the real Magnus Carlsen. Probably he'll now even win more games in this event. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the anti-martial system. If you want to see more games from this chess event, please check out my coverage. Here are some links of the games that we have analyzed before, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.